I'm Paul Van Squark of Taekwondo Guide, and this is Topic Tuesday, where people comment and send me questions all about Taekwondo, and we talk about Taekwondo. Welcome! We're going to start today off with a review of my most recent poll on the TKD Guide channel. Now, the poll was about combat Taekwondo, spelt with a K, not a C. I forgot. It's like Mortal Kombat. If you're not familiar with combat Taekwondo, it's like a competitive format where you can punch to the face, which you can't do in Olympic sparring, and you can sweep, and it's full contact, it's not point style. And they're trying to grow it and make it like karate combat. So, I took a poll because my concern is that while some people might think it's really awesome that this exists, very few Taekwondo people will actually want to do it. And the great thing about Olympic style sparring is that it's full contact, continuous fighting that a lot of people actually want to do because the risk of injury is still relatively low, which puts Taekwondo in a sort of sweet spot. It's not full contact kickboxing with punching to the head and knees and elbows and all that kind of stuff. It's not point style fighting. It's somewhere in the middle, which can appeal to a wide audience. And I think that's great. I think from a sports standpoint, this is a fantastic sport. And I feel like combat Taekwondo is just repackaged kickboxing. And I feel like if you want to do that, just go do kickboxing. There's already a lot of strong venues that do kickboxing that you can fall into if you're a Taekwondo athlete. All right, a lot of you know my opinion on that already. So what I was curious about is how many of you guys actually want to fight in combat Taekwondo, because a lot of you guys said that you like it. So the question is, what do you think about combat Taekwondo? This was my poll. I got 190 votes as of my screenshot here. And 59% of you guys who answered said, I want to fight in it. 14% said, I like to watch it. 22% said, I've never heard of it. And 5% said, it's stupid, which is maybe a little extreme. But I wanted something in there for people to express the idea that they might not like it. So 59% of you, that was shocking to me, said you wanted to fight in it. Fight in a full contact martial art that involves punching to the head and sweeps and all kinds of high level, high impact kind of stuff that you actually want to get out there and expose yourself to it. But I'm skeptical. I got to say I'm skeptical. So I asked a follow-up question, which was, I'm surprised so many of you want to fight in combat Taekwondo. Drop me a comment if you've signed up for one or one of their events or plan on doing so in the next year. Now, 59% of 190 people said that they wanted to actually fight in combat Taekwondo. So you'd think I'd get a few comments of people who are actually like signed up to do it. Well, I got just 3 or 4 comments about it. One was someone who actually wanted to do it. We actually have a national tournament coming this June. Second, sadly, I don't get to join because we're low on money right now. So this person might actually want to go out there and do that. All right, well, hats off to you if that's true. Someone else says, I want to learn, which doesn't specify if they want to go fight in it. It's, do you want to learn in class and do the drills? Or do you actually want to go fight in a tournament? I'm curious about that. Another says, I'm looking for a Taekwondo school right now. All right, well, that doesn't mean much in this format. And then another person says, I want to fight, but I don't have anything. I don't know what that means. So nobody has left me a comment saying they are actually signed up to fight in this thing or that they're planning on it in the next year, which leads me to believe that, except for a few of you, a lot of you guys who answered this are a bunch of posers, and you want other people to go and put their body through this train wreck so that you get the status of it. You go, that's Taekwondo, and I do combat Taekwondo even though I'm just hitting heavy bags in a class wearing a combat Taekwondo uniform. I do that thing, and so therefore I'm tough like those guys even though I don't actually fight. You're doing diet combat Taekwondo, and that's not any better than Olympic sparring. It's worse because if you're doing Olympic sparring and actually competing, actually getting out there and fighting, that's serious stuff. That's hard, okay? That's just my thoughts on the matter. And I'm only talking to a select few of you, obviously, here who answered that poll and that didn't comment. If I'm wrong, leave me a comment down below if you're actually registered to do this or plan to in the next year. Like, seriously. Not just like, I want to hit targets in class and say I'm doing combat Taekwondo. That doesn't count. That's like all the Muay Thai guys who basically do cardio kickboxing and then do a little bit of light sparring and say, I'm part of this thing called Muay Thai. Nah, not really. Not really. Get out there and do a fight and then tell me you're part of this thing, right? The reason I'm mad, I have nothing against people doing that. Nothing against people doing that. But those people should not criticize Olympic sparring athletes because they're not getting out and fighting at all. They're just taking part in a diet form of a very intense combat sport and then criticizing people who are doing more intense things than them. That's my problem. All right, let's jump in to your oh so important questions, which keep this show going. Man, you guys delivered this week. This is going to be a great episode. You know what? I just realized I kept my font tiny, and I'm going to stutter more if I keep it tiny. So I'm just going to blow this up real quick so that I don't stutter as much. You know, I have this visual perception problem. It affects my ability to read because my eyes jump around. I was diagnosed by a doctor. It made school a little bit harder. Okay, here we go. This is from Steve Karp. I know it's from Steve Karp, but for some reason his name disappeared. But Steve's written in before. Steve is always providing content. Steve says, hello, Master Paul. If I may, I'd like to make a suggestion and then ask a question. Number one, the suggestion, please find a way to monetize for yourself every single instance someone comments in any martial arts video comments section that'll never work in the street or in a street fight. That revenue stream, tongue-in-cheek. That revenue stream, see, my eyes just jumped. That revenue stream should be or could be highly lucrative for you. And he says it with tongue-in-cheek sarcasm. Yeah, Steve, I have actually monetized that, and that's how I make all my money. You don't make money teaching Taekwondo in spite of what people tell you. That's how I'm doing it, man. I'm just kidding. I wish I could. That's a fantastic idea. I mean, get to work on that. If you figure that out, we'll do a 50-50 split. How's that sound? Okay. He then says part two, number two. The question. Thank you for covering in multiple videos the realities of running and keeping running a martial arts studio. I understand that not every class can cover every individual's needs and want out of a martial arts style. I am 55, and the adult classes for our TKD studio have to cover a very broad range of ages, abilities, belt rankings, fitness levels, etc. Our class ranges from middle school students all the way to fossils like me. Having said that, I really think our instructors do a really good job of putting together classes that engage and challenge that wide range of students. One thing we don't get the chance to cover is something I'd like to ask you. How would you suggest teaching a student to engage multiple opponents simultaneously? Is there something in our pumse, perhaps, that a student can practice to help them deal with the tricky scenario of multiple opponents? Thank you for your hard work, and I can endorse your pumse videos. They've been very helpful supplement to class instruction. I'm assuming you're talking about the pumse course. Thank you so much for buying that. I'm glad it's been helpful to you. I honestly don't know of another one like it where it breaks down every detail of the Taekkyon forms. So if anyone's ever interested in that, if you're not in depth on those, if you don't know all the details, that can be a good place to start. Steve, great question about the multiple opponents. So, you know, in Taekkyon 1, we have this thing called agul maki, low block. No, sorry, are maki. Agul maki is high block, which is also in Taekkyon 1. No, we have are maki in Taekkyon. So when you're surrounded by 50 people, you just low block them all day and they can't get to you. Okay, I'm kidding. Now the real answer is it's very, very difficult to fight and defeat more than one person at a time. One person is hard enough. One person is hard enough. There's no guarantees with just one person, even with your training. So unless you're fighting toddlers, the odds of coming out victorious, very, very low. So what you want to try to do is move them in a way where you only have to deal with one at a time and that you can escape. Now, is it impossible to beat them all up? No. I mean, obviously, if you're super tough and you can position yourself correctly, it can happen. There's some good videos on YouTube you can see of like some boxers doing this to guys, and typically they stack them in exactly the way I'm about to tell you. All right, so let's talk about an ideal position. Okay, let's say you are, and by the way, this comes from Christopher Hine, who does an Aikido channel on YouTube, and Aikido has a lot of strategies for dealing with more than one person. Again, not for beating them up, but for just arranging them so that you don't have to deal with a whole bunch of people at once. So the best possible scenario you can be in when there's multiple people is to put them in what's called an I formation. So that means one person is right behind the other person, and that means the person that you're facing basically acts like a shield for the person behind them. They can't get through it, okay? Now, if the person offsets a little bit, that's a staggered formation, and that's the next ideal position because you can still shoot to the side where that staggered person is going to have to come around the person in front of you, and it takes them extra time to do that. So you have a good chance of maneuvering around them. So that's the staggered position, okay? Next worst position is the triangle position. That's where there's two people on each side of you, but they're in front of you, right? That means you can't really go one way or the other and have an advantage for escape. You're going to have to figure out something to re-merge, get them to re-merge and then break off. Okay, now the worst place to be is basically where you're sandwiched, where one person is on each side of you. So the goal is to keep people in an I formation, then a staggered formation, triangle, and last sandwich. And then if you're in one of those worst positions, get back to that I formation. Now you can do different live exercises with this. Kids like these, for example, you can have people hold a shield, and then their goal is to try to sandwich the person playing defense in between two shields, and the person playing defense is trying to move in a way where they stack them. It's quite exhausting. And you can even add elements to it where the person moving around is hitting the shields. So they're practicing moving and striking at the same time, which is an important part of dealing with more than one person that's really unusual for a lot of people. A lot of people are really uncomfortable throwing strikes while they're kind of running around, okay? So that would be my recommendation. Again, you're not going to likely be able to deal with all those people at once unless you've just had some Culver's iced tea. As they say, caffeine is one hell of a drug. And if you drink some of that sweet, unsweet in this case, Culver's iced tea, you will be supercharged, and regardless of toddlers or full-grown adults, be able to beat up any mob that you should encounter. That is a guarantee you can take to the bank. All right, Steve, great question. Thanks again for writing in. You really do a lot to keep this stuff going. You're one of my favorite people. Okay, next we have a question or comment from Philip2165, who writes, I am almost a blue belt, and I've considered the fact that within a few years I'll be expected to start teaching and co-teaching classes to get my black belt. Do you have any general advice about how to transition from student to teacher? Things to avoid doing or things you wish you would have known? Apologies if you've covered this previously. Thanks. Hope your hip recovery is going well. Yeah, hip. I have arthritis here. I still haven't figured it out. It's hard to kick right now. Maybe that's just where I'm at. but I'm going to keep working at it. Okay, let's answer that question. That's a very good question. I think there's two big things that you kind of need to be a good instructor. Now, one of them is all you need to have students and people who like you and come to your classes. That's if you're entertaining and charismatic. We're going to lump those together, so it's just one item. Okay, entertaining and charismatic. If you're entertaining and charismatic, unfortunately, you can have your classes filled and you can say the dumbest stuff and people will buy it, 90% of people at least, and they'll still flock to you in droves because you're charismatic and entertaining. Right? Those are the two big things to actually get people in your classes that you have to have. If you're super knowledgeable, doesn't really matter if you don't have those two things. Very few people will be able to take you seriously if you don't have at least some of that element in your system, right? I've seen some of the worst instructors in terms of what they're actually covering in a class, yet they have full classes because people like being around them, and they make them feel special for being in the class. Okay, so work on that. You know, you can read books like, it's been so long since I've read it, I'm almost forgetting the name, Dale Carnegie. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's a good place to start. And think about constantly changing up your material in the classes, so you're disguising the repetition, so you're working on things in different ways. And that way your classes aren't dull and repetitive. Those two things are going to go a long way to keeping people entertained and, you know, having a personality that attracts people. All right, so let's, start with that one. Now let's get into the fun stuff, technical aspects of a good instructor. There's so many things that we think make a good instructor that really have nothing to do with getting good at martial arts. I had an instructor for Aikido, tremendous wealth of knowledge, extraordinary background, like one of those just dedicated themselves to the martial arts and sacrificed just about everything in their life so that they could be better at it. And working with this instructor, I would get quickly overwhelmed because they would hammer me with details at such a rapid pace that I couldn't take one thing and try to work on it. As soon as I did, I'd get hit with the next thing and the next thing. And it was just overwhelming, and it made for a really uncomfortable and unenjoyable experience and an environment where I didn't learn very much. Now, I like this person to this day. They're a wonderful person, and again, treasure trove of knowledge when it comes to traditional Aikido and various other things. But wasn't connecting the dots with this person personally. So, you have to find a way to take the knowledge you have and give it to a student in a way that they can digest it and actually have something that they're going to walk away with at the end of the day. So I would say, don't try to hammer people with too much too early. Because a lot of people think of that as good instruction. I had a student who worked with me as an assistant instructor a lot, and he was frequently doing this early on. I had to talk to him and say, hey, you're giving a little too much at once. Just give one thing here and there, and let people work. Let them do their thing. Let them practice. That's how you learn, is a lot of times just leaving people alone. And that's what I mean by we don't connect with that as being something a good instructor does. We think instructors have to chime in all the time. Really, you want to chime in as little as possible and let people just do their thing. All right? Now, Josh at Combat Learning, who I'm going to be interviewing this week, actually is big on this kind of stuff. And he would say, if I understand his material correctly, that you should actually just shape your environment to do the teaching and say just about nothing at all. So instead of teaching them exactly how to do techniques, you create scenarios that are free play scenarios in which the technique comes out of the individual organically. And I do think that's the best approach. It's the most difficult as an instructor because you have to be thinking about all these different ways to deliver information through the structure of the environment. That is high-level teaching. And that's what I would look for you to do. And you can do it with both pumse and sparring. It's a lot easier with sparring in that, like, if you want to work on a cut kick, instead of having someone just kick a heavy bag, you give people different roles. You say, okay, this person is going to try to only rear leg roundhouse kick. The other person is going to try to intercept and cancel them or hit them with a cut kick before that rear leg roundhouse kick connects. And you have them do that a bunch. Now that's going to be a lot better for developing their cut kick than just hitting a stationary heavy bag. So that's the idea here, right? So how do you put that into pumse? I was just working with a younger child on Taekkyon 5. If you know it, there's this movement where you do an elbow strike supported in your palm, and children love to just go really wide with this elbow and turn their whole body, and it's a mess because they're not supposed to do that. And unlike sparring, pumse has exact ways it needs to be done, so you have to get a little more technical in that sense with them. But I was like, okay, how can I get them to do this? I explained it, but they're still not doing it. How can I get them to do it? So I made them stand next to a mirror and touch their knee on the mirror and then step and do the elbow. And the trick is that they have to go straight with their arm and then rotate the elbow over, just like if you were punching straight out and then turning your elbow at the end, rather than starting with their elbow flared out and swinging across. And so I put them right next to a mirror, and I said, if you elbow and break my mirror, you're going to be in trouble, just kind of in a joking way. I said, I want you to step forward and do the elbow strike. And sure enough, right away, because of the constraint of that wall, they got the technique down correctly. So I try to do a lot of like using tools, objects, to help them find the feeling in their body, because you know, they already know how to do the thing somewhere in their system. It's just that they're not understanding what it is they're trying to do. So you have to communicate it through the use of objects or analogy a lot of times. All right. Avoid micromanagement stuff. That'd be my next big thing. Is like, gosh, how many people tell someone to raise their hands 2 inches higher when they're punching a target or something like that? Like, I'm in a high guard and my hand is just an inch too low. That's not really going to help them do anything. But you feel like you're coaching, right? Or like if someone's sparring and you go, keep your hands up, keep your cover guard, something like that. That stuff's like the lowest level of coaching, critique in that manner. You can do that more so with pumse, but sparring, that's low level stuff. Try to get them to respond in the way you want through the environment you're creating. Avoid that micromanaging stuff and shut up as much as possible. Also, something I wish I had known, because a lot of this is stuff I had to learn over the years, and I'm going to try to take it to the next level, working with the kind of stuff Josh at Combat Learning talks about. But I did a lot of supplementary exercises back in the day that chewed up a good chunk of class time that are almost useless for Taekwondo. But they give you this like ego of, oh, my class is really hard, right? So sometimes we'd do 1,000 jumping jacks. What a waste of time. That would take like 15, 20 minutes of time, right? So remember, people only come in maybe 2 hours a week, depending on your schedule and the type of students you have, sometimes more. But they can do all that stuff outside of class if they want to. Give them stuff that actually translates directly into the skills you're trying to build. And I'll tell you what, you're going to build your muscles and your physique in a way that better applies to what you're trying to do by just doing the thing. Like, what exercises should I do to get good at water skiing? How about, before you do anything like that, just make sure you can water ski as much as possible. And then if you're water skiing a ton, now we can maybe talk about some other stuff, right? It's the same with Taekwondo. Avoid all the extra exercises that have nothing to do with the training. Jumping jacks, push-ups, sit-ups, all that stuff. Just get them right into the content. That's so much more valuable. And they're still getting exercise if they're engaging correctly, I promise. If you're doing sparring stuff or if you're doing pumse and you're really trying, you're getting exercise. You're getting better exercise for what you're trying to develop. So cut all that stuff. Don't worry about your ego and how hard your classes are or what people perceive as a tough class. Give them the stuff they need the most. And that would be my final thing. When I started teaching, I was approaching it from the standpoint of what I needed as a more advanced level martial artist and not what my students needed. So I would make the class more about what I thought I wanted out of a class than what they needed. And that was a selfish way to teach and not a great way to develop the students. So some stuff for you to sink your teeth into. Fantastic question. You know, just the fact that you're asking this question is a really good sign, because it means you're searching for the right ways to be as best you can at your stuff. And we never are at a point of like perfection as instructors. I think the best instructors are always trying to evolve and improve their methods so that they can give the best possible bang for their buck to their students. So thanks, Philip. Next question comes from Alistair Korstofine 7469, who says, awesome video. Question, I practice ITF Taekwondo, but really like some of the kicks of WTF Taekwondo. We changed the name in 2017 to WT Taekwondo. Thank you. Just kidding. Not a problem. I also enjoy competing, pattern sparring, etc. Could I mix up my point sparring with WTF Taekwondo kicks and movement? Good question. So first, I'll be the first to tell you, I don't know much of anything about ITF Taekwondo other than just watching some videos on the internet. So I really don't have a lot of room to comment on that. Can you take some of the stuff from WT Taekwondo? Almost said WTF. From WT Taekwondo and apply it? I would be shocked if the front leg game that has been developed for Olympic style fighting, such as cut kick and canceling and all that good stuff, didn't help you out in point fighting. That being said, I don't know point fighting circuits very well at all, so I could be way off on that. But if I'm just guessing, my gut says that working on Olympic sparring's front leg game could be highly advantageous. So that would be my advice. I'm sorry I can't tell you too much more. I'm a dingus when it comes to ITF Taekwondo. From Jesse Moya 3836. Big fan. Thanks, Jesse. In your opinion, what martial art mixes well with Taekwondo? I think Judo is a good mix. Also, can you do the splits? I feel that all Taekwondo practitioners should know how to do the splits to make their kicks better. Let's start with the first part. What mixes well with Taekwondo? I actually did a whole Topic Tuesday on this if you want to check it out. I agree with you. I think Judo is a really good one to mix with Taekwondo, because Taekwondo is so great at the distance game, and then what happens when the distance breaks down, you go into that clinch, and now you're in Judo's backyard, which I think would pair nicely, and Judo has a little bit of a ground game too. But you know, the right answer, of course, is the thing you want to do mixes good with Taekwondo, and what you have access to. All the real life stuff comes into play here. Like, I'll tell you, I love the concept of Judo. I am not going to do it. My arthritic hip does not want to be slammed on the floor. One Judo class would probably have me hurting for a month. So Judo's out of the question for me. I'd rather do something like fencing, which is going to have a very low impact on that hip. Now, is that the best thing to mix with Taekwondo? It depends on what your goals are, right? Remember, I'm the it depends guy. So, yeah, if you're just talking about like an overall unarmed combat skill set, I do think Judo or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu pair very nicely. But if you want to learn something with weapons, those aren't great. So that's one of the reasons I did Aikido, is you get to learn some really interesting Japanese martial arts weapons stuff. So, you know, whatever you want out of your training is going to be the right answer. And what's close to you, and what can your body handle, all that stuff. Then you ask about the splits. Gosh, you know, even just a few months ago, I could do a split. I've got pictures of me like doing them on chairs. This arthritis has made it, I just can't go down there. It hurts too much at a certain point. So I don't know if you removed my pain, I might still be able to. I'm not sure anymore, honestly. But yeah, I could until quite recently. Definitely, you don't have to be good at Taekwondo. I spoke with my friend who spent a lot of time training with one of the top Olympic coaches, and he said, some of the better people down there were not very flexible. So you work with what you've got. Is it going to give you more options if you have higher range of motion? Yes. So it certainly can be helpful to develop it, and I think it's worth spending a little bit of time on, certainly. But everyone hits plateaus at different points, so you want to find that point of diminishing returns, that's my opinion, on your stretching so that you're not wasting time stretching, and stretch in a way that's directly applicable to your movements. All right, good stuff. Next, from Enter the Dream. Taekwondo needs fixing in general. Why not turn it into boxing, but for kicks? No clinch or punches, just kicks scored on effectiveness like in Muay Thai. So Enter the Dream is saying we should take out the punches and the clinches and then make it boxing with the feet. Okay? I'm reading this because I'm perplexed by it, because it basically already is boxing with the feet, and kicks are scored on effectiveness already because they don't score unless they deliver enough power to the electronic gear. I find it to be a strange question. And then he actually wants to limit it more and take the punches and the clinches out. Honestly, I don't think you can get rid of clinching. It's a natural response in a combat sport to being overwhelmed. It's just going to happen. So if you penalize people for it, it's still going to happen. Yeah, so what I always think is, like, if you have a way that you want to do Taekwondo and you think it's going to be better, we'll start the organization and see if people draw and gravitate to it. Because a lot of people make these sorts of complaints about Taekwondo. They think they have the ultimate mix of rules, but they sit and type about it. Start some tournaments. Get people to come. See if they like it. See if it takes off. It would probably die. That's why we have it the way it is now, is because the other stuff has died. Okay, let's move on to the next question or topic from Junichiro Mashita, I think. What is your take on Taekkyon? I had a instructor where I was first training in Taekwondo visit who was also a Taekkyon instructor, and got to do 1 or 2 Taekkyon classes a little bit. It was a lot of fun. It's got some cool stuff. I don't know too much about it. I don't think the Taekkyon as practiced today has too much in common with what was going on a long time ago, because there was a lot of broken links in knowledge transmission. So I suspect, and I've heard through other sources, that it's more like HEMA in the West today, where people are reading like old Italian swordsmanship manuals, and then they play together with swords and try to figure out how to use the stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's cool. So I think Taekkyon's cool. I don't think it will ever have mass appeal. It's got an interesting rule set. But yeah, I mean, if you have the opportunity to do some, I would recommend getting a little bit of it at least, because it's just interesting and it's fun. Okay, the next one. I don't have the screen name for some reason. I thought this was a funny exchange. This person asked, oh, here it is. User-in8MUFCS1I. Are you a bot? They asked, I feel pain in the knee when I do a roundhouse kick or stretch for split. What is the reason? What is the solution? I'm a beginner. And I said, I can't answer that for you. You should consult a physical therapist or doctor. But I'm honored that you think I can answer that. They said, I visited the doctor and he told me that there is no problem. What is the solution? I don't know why you're feeling pain in your knee. Like, I would need so much information to even be able to make a guess at that. And that's not my job. Like, I'm not I can show you how to do the motion that's textbook correct. That doesn't mean it's going to be pain-free for you. I don't know what's going on in your body. I strongly, strongly recommend you try to connect with a physical therapist because they can test your body, take you through different ranges, and see what's going on with your muscles and what imbalances you have that might be causing this sort of stuff. And then from there, they can give you tailored exercises specific to you, not me or anybody else, that will help you solve that problem. Guys, the human body is super complicated. Everyone's got different stuff going on. Everyone's body's a little different. There's not like a quick fix solution to these sorts of things that I can just spit out that will help fix everybody. And that being said, you can check out some of the online physical therapists, like, I can't remember their names, it's like Bill and Ted or something like that. There's a lot of guys who put out stuff on YouTube videos for knee pain, back pain, all kinds of different pain, and they go through a bunch of different exercises. And you can try those and see if they work, and that might be one way to find it. But better than that, meet with the person, connect with them in physical reality where they can actually feel and see what's going on with your body, and then listen to what they tell you. I don't have those kinds of answers. That's not something I can give you. I'm sorry. I'm honored that you think that I can. This has been a great Topic Tuesday. Look at this. We got over 33 minutes in. Fantastic. And you know why? Because you guys delivered. You left comments. You put them down there. Questions, topics, all the stuff we need to have Topic Tuesday. Now, if that doesn't happen, there's no Topic Tuesday. So if you want this stuff, if you like it, if you're entertained, are you not entertained? Drop those comments. Get in there and participate. Hey, my new video I'm working on is all about the live sparring drills that I'm playing with to bring Aikido to the next generation. Now, it's possible Aikido just needs to be tossed in the trash. But I might have something here, and I want you guys to check it out and see. So I'm working on that. Unfortunately, some of it requires a partner, and so I have to find time to get video working with that person. All right. As always, enjoy your training. Until next time.